I don't want to go that far, but let me just say there's a lot of gray area, and there will no longer be any gray area. And to the extent General Baldwin and others wish to speak to that more forcefully or to clarify that, I know he will. But I can assure you, when you have National Guardsmen and women doing, for example, surveillance with cameras, it's hard to distinguish between those that are participating in gun and drug activity versus those that may be just crossing the border illegally. And as a consequence, that I would term as a gray area that we will no longer participate in.
$25 million. That is how much money California Governor Gavin Newsom wants for an emergency fund to help the migrants seeking asylum.
Scott Lewis, Voice San Diego. So we did a piece about how the National Guard was involved in an immigration detention effort. How do you make sure that doesn't happen? And what exactly were the Guard units doing?
Well, we can talk more about that. General Baldwin can answer that, and from car maintenance to the work that they were doing as it relates to surveillance. There's other specific work that we think is appropriate. Again, we're going to build on that, and the general will come up in a moment and lay out the details of what the existing deployment. But I will say this, there's an additional point I need to make. This is also getting in the way of our National Guard being prepared for being redeployed overseas. They actually are doing work that precludes them from getting the training and the skills and the time off that is necessary to make sure that they're prepared for more appropriate deployment. So this is actually hurting our readiness, which is another point that should be emphasized in this executive order and in the letters in this redirection. Excuse me.
What is your response to some Republicans in this building who say that your executive order ignores the issue of human sex trafficking?
Well, I think there's a great New Yorker piece that they should refer to, and they should be educated.
Mr. President, Vice President, members of the press, no one understands better than sheriffs in this country what's happening to us with the criminality that's coming across the border.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Heading us to Texas now.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The fight for you.
Thank you.
Fighting for everybody.
Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President. Mr. President. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Vice President. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Bakersfield, California, we appreciate you.
It's a good place.
California, we appreciate you.
It's a good place.
Border Sheriff.
Thank you. The border sheriff, you know about it. Sheriff, would you like to say something?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. President,
Thank you.
for standing with law enforcement.
Thank you, Sheriff.
You've given us our footing back. The President is absolutely right to be standing in defense of this, in defense of the safety and security of the people of this nation.
Sheriff, please.
Mr. President, Vice President, members of the press, no one understands better than sheriffs in this country what's happening to us with the criminality that's coming across the border. This is what we do. This is where we're engaged. We understand exactly what these men and women in this country of law enforcement understand very well what's going on in our border.
On this topic, there's a lot that's been stated, that a lot of it falls flat on the facts.
Big problems. I just got this from Homeland Security. And you look at this, thousands of people. Dangerous drugs, 76,000 people. Then you have traffic offenses. That's not so good, but that's every crime. Assault, 63,000 people. Larceny, 20,000 people. Fraudulent activities, 12,000 people. Burglaries, 12,000 people. These, again, are just a different crime. Robberies, These are the people coming into our country. Robberies, 5,991. Sexual assaults, 6,350. Forgeries, 5,158. Stolen property, 4,462. These are people we're talking about. Kidnapping. These are people that kidnap people. The Democrats want them to come into our society. I don't think so. Kidnappings, 2,085. Homicides, that means murder. Murderers, 2,028. Sexual offenses, 1,739. Just came out 2 minutes ago.
That the real issue is drugs, the issue of guns. And on the issue of drugs, we actually have seen some success. There's aspects that are true, but then they highlight those and overstate them in order to curry favor with a policy that's flawed in the first place. But nonetheless, there are legitimate concerns. They're just overstated from my humble perspective. The deeper issue is drugs. That's real. That's not manufactured.
So the governor has directed us to only continue those mission sets, as he mentioned, that focus squarely on transnational criminal organizations and the drug threat. And those jobs will be the people that are doing the cargo container searches at the ports of entry and at Border Patrol checkpoints throughout Southern California, and also on our criminal intelligence analysts.
Can you address the gray area he described about immigration enforcement?
Sure. So we have not been involved in any detention of immigrants. However, as the governor mentioned, there is a gray area. If you are a camera operator, and we have a number of soldiers being camera operators, or you're working as a dispatcher, and as a camera operator, you see an intrusion across the border, someone coming across the border. Any intrusion across the border in between the ports of entry is illegal, even if you're a U.S. citizen. So our soldiers would report that to the Border Patrol for the Border Patrol to take action without knowing what the intent of the person that's crossing the border is, whether they are indeed criminals that are smuggling guns, doing human trafficking, or something even more nefarious to do harm to our country, or if it's someone here coming to seek a better life, or if it's someone here coming to seek a better life. Indeed, criminals that are smuggling guns, doing human trafficking, or something even more nefarious to do harm to our country, we couldn't make the distinction between the two. That was up to the Border Patrol to sort out. Those tasks were within California state law and within the guidance that Governor Brown had given us. However, our current governor has decided that because there is a bit of a gray area, and because there are other uses that that our National Guard could be engaged in here in state or to prepare to go overseas, it's better to stay away from those areas and focus on squarely on those tasks that we can directly relate to combating transnational threats.
Will there be any National Guardsmen involved in surveillance after this order takes effect?
Not under the current mission set.
$25 million. That is how much money California Governor Gavin Newsom wants for an emergency fund to help the migrants seeking asylum. If approved, the taxpayer money would be available this summer.
They have 3,750 U.S. military personnel, more than in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria combined. I mean, it's comedy, folks. You know it. It's pure political theater, period. I mean, it's just amazing to me how lazy we've become as a nation that we've even allowed this to perpetuate, and why I'm wasting my time up here when I should be focusing on housing and homelessness and other more important things. Ding, 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 ding. I mean, that's called governing. How about some accountability to govern? It seems to be lost in all of this.
Can I just
last
ask one
point.
more quick question, Governor?
Yeah.
You've mentioned housing and homelessness, not enough attention being paid to that. So I just one quick question on that. You've been
I opened myself to that.
You've been unequivocally
$25 million. That is how much money California Governor Gavin Newsom wants for an emergency fund to help the migrants seeking asylum. If approved, the taxpayer money would be available this summer.
Damn bird.